Alright, TLDR, Cleric, Asterisk Bard, Asterisk Warlock, huge asterisk, Barbarian, Cleric, Warlock, asterisk. I know this video is long, there are chapters if you're looking for something specific, or if you just want to skip me doing the same intro I've done for every other video. Ahem! This is all for D&D 5th edition. It's as close to book legal as I can get it, so no cool homebrew races or class. Stats are A, standard A, no, not that one. All racial stat bonuses are replaced with +2/+1, which is how Baldur's Gate 3 does it. I am fucking vindicated, and backgrounds are the custom rules in the PHP, where it's any feature, 2 skills, and 2 tools. Disclaimer from the wrong side of the fourth wall. This is one big elaborate bit, so I'm invoking gesture privilege. Nothing said here matters, so when I say your favorite has no ass or something, it's always about the character, not any potential meat prison staying behind the curtain over there. Even and especially when I am objectively correct, literally every time, like I was with Fox. And if you found that funny, you should check out the Luxian video where I actually made that joke, and maybe subscribe while you're at it. Oh god, is that what shelling feels like? Blech. Anyway, first up is Doppio Drop Scythe. Because he's the simplest, I don't want to overload you with bullshit just yet, but don't worry, he still had just a touch of shenanigans for me. See, his power is bullshit for D&D. It doesn't exist. You can't do it. Take your enemy's strength and reflect it. How would you even begin to do that? Like take CR or make absorb elements work on getting hit by a fucking car damage? No. It's impossible without serious homebrew, and I'm not allowed to use that. The only thing you could even try is like reaction attack when you get hit. So you take their attack and use it to attack them, which is just so unbelievably shit. Anyway, Berserker Barbarians get a reaction attack whenever they get hit at level 14, and since this dude fought a fucking car and won, I don't see a problem making him that high level. Berserker also gives Intimidating Presence, which I will deal with later. Mindless Rage, which is great for someone who thought Punch Card good plan. And the main feature, Frenzy, which gives you a bonus action attack when raging at the cost of your dice getting taken out back and shot like a lame horse after you use it. / you take a point of exhaustion. Not sure there's a difference. And this is all on top of the standard Barbarian package, which at this level includes getting so angry he can't die asterisk, and doubling the double dice damage on crit, which frankly fits his double drop's name way better than the actual power does. His stats are going to be kind of a pain, actually. See, I wasn't sure what stat is more important for fighting a car. Strength to break it, or con to stop it breaking you. Not to mention, this dude is funny and witty, so he needed good charisma, so with base 16 strength, 15 con, and 14 charisma, +2 racial and charisma, and +1 in con, followed by giving each one of the 3 ability score increases he gets, gives him 18 in all of them. Although taking the charisma racial bonus and putting it into strength would not be a bad call. But for the shit ones, Dex is at 12 with Wisdom and Intelligence at 10 and 8 respectively. Him skipping class is the only thing locking Intelligence in last and saving him from a negative Wisdom, since this man had to look up what a coochie was and apparently managed to burn water. Skipping class is holding up the fucking world right now. For background, we're going to call it Delinquent and be cool with me giving him the Pirate's Bad Reputation feature, since him having a bad reputation is really important for his backstory. Cool? Right, yeah, cool. For skills, no intimidation. Huh? I know he's the Delinquent of XSOLEIL, and he gets Intimidating Presence, and I just said he gets bad reputation, but I've seen this guy try and talk shit. He really puts his whole ass into it. Hell, an ass and a half into it. It ain't working. His charisma is high, so his intimidation isn't bad, especially with bad rep handling some intimidating itself, but for his actual skills, they're a pain in the ass to pick for avoiding charisma ones. Oh well, I've done worse for this video. From his class, athletics is obvious, and, animal handling. Bird. From background and race, perception because we can say it comes from his job as disciplinarian, and he's definitely not invested enough to really investigate trouble. Insight because while he may be a dumbass, he seems to really get people, at least well enough to know what they'll find funny. And survival because he did a long ass bit as a nutritionist, and that was important enough to get on his annoyingly slim wiki page. And I'm out of better ideas. Although for once, that's not the reason he can't games it with his cook's tools. He lives in an arcade for fuck's sake. If he wasn't good at arcade games, it'd just be fucking sad. And the cook's utensils are from him cooking in his debut likes, along with the whole dietitian thing again, which is good enough for me. And I sincerely hope you enjoyed that small bit of not bullshit. It will not be happening again as we move on to Kotoka Torahime, especially since we're going to start off with some quote-unquote builds that I didn't even go with. See, Kotoka can shapeshift into others, or can cast illusion on herself to look like others, not 100% sure. And either way, both are available at level 0. Not level 1, level 0. You can make a very convincing Kotoka without any levels at all. The obvious way is with Changeling since, well, duh. And her lore is the classic, I can shapeshift into others, but then do people really like me? That's typical for them. Problem is that Changelings can't affect their clothes, while Kotoka can, and she's really supposed to be human. Oh wait, humans can do this shit too! Remember 20 seconds ago I said her glamour might be an illusion? Yeah, that's just Disguise Self. And you can cast Disguise Self at will for free with Warlock's Mask of Many Faces invocation. And the Eldritch Adept feat lets you grab an invocation, and Variant Human gets to take a feat as a ratio bonus, letting you get at will Disguise Self without a single level to your name. But what about getting both of them? I hear you cry out from my nightmares. Changeling is only half the transformation, and Disguise Self isn't interesting enough for a full character build, so you have then just wait till level 4 as Changeling and take Eldritch Adept in whatever class you want then. Or, and this is homebrew, so doesn't count for the video, I highly recommend level 1 feats as a general playstyle. Makes character come alive a lot sooner, makes them feel more unique. It's very nice. But that's it then. Job done. Kotoka's level 4 at best, level 0 at worst. We can just... Hold it! You think I would ever leave it that unfinished? Come on. We're forgetting one very important part of Kotoka as a character. Her character. We've been stuck on her as backstory and racial options. She has more going on than that. Namely, she's one of the most prolific singers in Nijisanji. That's right! We're going from one hyper-simplified and reductive axis of thought to two hyper-simplified and reductive axes of thought. As a song person, she's obviously a bard. And while this build comes online level 4 with both Changeling, Shape Change, and Disguise Self at will, and while I have definitely made talents that weak and far worse, I just don't like that vibe from Kotoka. I mean, if you do, more power to you. I didn't learn how to make her level fucking 0 for no reason. But Kotoka is charismatic with a capital all of it. She sings, she lies, she make the word go real good like yours truly. She's confirmed distractingly hot. And I'd feel like I was cheating her like I cheated Vox if she didn't get 20 charisma. So we need level 8 to get an extra ASI. To cover the rest of her stats before we circle back around to Bard, you can't win. Really, I'm actually impressed with how horrifically inconsistent Kotoka is. Next would be intelligence, because her full-time job is speaking a second language, and I think that's fucking cool. But according to her, she's, quote, crippled in both languages. But next highest would be Dex, and yeah, right. So, fuck it. Torihime means tiger princess, and she said it because she's cute and strong, so sure. But strength's only getting 14 plus 1 racial, so both it and intelligence can share the +2 modifiers they deserve. Dex at 12 because it's bad, but it's not worse than Con or Wisdom. And between Kotoka being a dumbass and Kotoka looking like she'd go down like a punk bitch, I would say 8 Wisdom. Because while she does have some decent Wisdom moments, she still fits best in the Dump Wisdom Club. The highest of the lowest Wisdom, at least. Okay, we know what DnD Kotoka is from her race to her stats. What does she do? Well, I mentioned Bard before, but funny enough for subclass, this is the second time we're seeing College of Glamour Bard for reasons other than what College of Glamour Bard actually does. Before it was for Pomu and it being the fairy subclass, now it's for Kotoka and it having the same name as her counter command. Tough break. At least this time its features are also just good for the build, since all of them are about changing your appearance, even though none of them are things she is technically supposed to be able to do. But since what she's supposed to be able to do is have a first level spell, I think we can stretch the truth just a little bit. Glamour Bard lets Kotoka burn a bardic inspiration to give a bunch of people temp health and a free disengage move, and also gives Kotoka a, quote, wondrous appearance that's completely irrelevant to the ability in question, lets Kotoka put on performances so good it charms people that see it, and can give her an unearthly beauty, which is distinct from the wondrous appearance, that lets her cast command as a bonus action for free for a minute, which would already be good before it automatically succeeds on charmed targets, which this subclass excels at making. Basically, Glamour Bards are rock stars with groupies and or simps, which I won't say doesn't fit. Anyway, Kotoka's backstory is that she felt really isolated in what's probably meant to be high school, but her, or really anyone in XSOLEIL being a minor, is really fucked up and uncomfortable, so we're gonna say college, then joined XSOLEIL, which, ditto. And that's not a background option. Because nothing can be easy, I guess. Whatever. Valkyria's feature works well since it's being popular with common people, and what little backstory we do get is just her being popular with common people and being sad about it. For skills, she's getting Persuasion and Deception from Changeling, and Performance plus the rest of them from Bard and Background. I went with Acrobatics, Insight, Intimidation, and Perception, but they're just kind of okay. Look, she gets a lot of skills and not a lot of great options, okay? Two of the good skills, Performance and Persuasion, are also getting Expertise, which I'm much more confident in. Her tools are going to be cook utensils because she has a lot of cooking streams, so she should at least theoretically know how to use them. And a game set because look, I don't even have faith in 4 of her skills. You think I'm gonna find a good tool proficiency? No. Finally, for her spells, I specifically avoided any healing spells because that's not a thing I've ever seen mentioned, and XSOLEIL already has 2 clerics and a designated healer in hacks. She is 100% getting Vicious Mockery though, if only because she has done some genuine psychic damage to Ver more than once, which I 100% support because it's funny, and then a bunch of other word spells. If a bard spell involves speaking outside of the verbal components or charms in some way, then it's probably on the list. Sending, Suggestion, Charm Person, Tongues for Language, Speak with Plants, just because I think it's funny. Even Enthrall got on the list, specifically because it's a fucking awful spell, especially for a glamour bard. And Kotoka deserves one of those, since I didn't make her level 0 yet. Next up is Melon. Next up is Meloco Kyorin, the event coordinator and, more relevant to us, exorcist of XSOLEIL. Now there are ways to do an exorcist that's not cleric, but they're stupid since clerics get Destroy Undead, which, well, I'm sure you can figure that one out. Not only that, but clerics have a very important subclass, Tempest Domain. Which, I know, what the fuck does Meloco have to do with Tempests? Does her getting powered up in the rain really mean that? Yes. Because there is exactly one thing in DnD that gets stronger in the rain, Call Lightning, which gets an extra d10 damage. And the only characters that get Call Lightning are Druids, the Mercer Paladin homebrew, and Tempest clerics. It does help that the other subclass features are good, so it's not just the spell. The Challenge Divinity can max out lightning damage, which not only makes Call Lightning scary as hell, but also makes the rain bonus a much nicer flat 10 instead of a d10. Though Tempest does mean Meloco can't get the strongest Destroy Undead, since when clerics get Destroy Undead up to CR4, level 17, Tempest clerics get a fly speed when they're outside, and I can't think of a way to make that make sense. But thankfully, Meloco was kicked out of her old party / abusive asshat family for not exercising things good enough, so at least not being the strongest makes sense. Meloco's only actually going up to level 14 to get the CR3 Destroy Undead, although you might want to go with level 15 to get Control Weather, depending on your DM. See, I may have fibbed a little bit when I said Call Lightning gets stronger in the rain. It gets stronger in storms, which is a real distinction that really pisses in our cereal. Rain is already kind of uncommon as is, and doesn't actually make Call Lightning that much stronger, and it's completely up to your DM what happens anyway, so it should be fine. But if your DM is picky, you can use Control Weather to make the weather worse and get the buff from rain that way. But since it's not a thing Meloco can normally do, and I do not care about the nuances between rain and spicy rain, I'm leaving her at level 14. Now for race, I do think she's canonically human, but Vampire's Goth is fucking fit so good. Come on. Are you going to complain if I make this character a little bit of a vampire? Her powers aren't even supposed to work in the sun, and while we can't and won't make that an actual build feature, Vampire at least pays homage to that. So since it fits the vibe and vampires are hot, we're rolling with it and just gonna hold on real tight to her powers being photosensitive. As a Vampire, she gets a lot. An extra 5 feet of movement, better than you'd think. Dark vision, something someone working at night would need, mark another point for Vampire. She doesn't need to breathe, gets the best climbing in the game with Spider Climb, and she gets the most interesting unarmed attack in the game with Vampiric Bite. For one, it uses Constitution for the attack instead of literally any other stat that's already used for attacks. For two, when you're below half health, you get advantage on the attack roll. And for three, you can choose to enhance the bite, either A, heal you for the damage done, or B, gain a bonus to your next ability check or attack roll equal to the damage done. Which, given that it's a d4 damage, you're at least getting the benefits of guidance with neutral con, which is one of the best cantrips in the game when it doesn't affect attacks. While Vampires are really, really good, missing out on a feat actually kinda sorta hurts, maybe. Like, she still gets 3 ASIs from levels, 2 of which are just going into ability score increases, because honestly she seems like she has pretty cracked stats, better than what I've set for standard anyway. So her only feat is Warcaster to keep Call Lightning up and let her use a shield while still casting somatic components. But speaking of ability score increases, one is going into Charisma along with a +2 racial, 20 total, which if you're a Meloco fan, I know you aren't gonna fucking argue with. 15 plus 1 for 16 total wisdom, which isn't fantastic for cleric, but she isn't supposed to be a fantastic cleric anyway, so it fits. As is giving intelligence and ASI, so it's also 16. Very similar story to Kotoka. Her job is speaking a second language, which is super fucking impressive actually, and this time she hasn't said anything to contradict.
I have like 3 IQ.
Well, guess I'll just go fuck myself then. Fuck it. Strength was going to be last, but swap it to 16 instead. It lets her use Tempest Heavy Armor proficiency and makes Divine Strike an option you might actually use. Then Dex fits best of what's left, then Con because I don't want to fuck up the bite attack, and finally, Intelligence in last, -1. They want low int? Fine. I can give him low int. I don't even fucking care actually. Whatever. For proficiencies, she's getting Weavers and Leatherworkers tools. Actually, interesting choices this time because according to her, she got the job as event coordinator because of her fashion sense, and Weavers tools are the closest thing to clothing proficiency. And she makes, let's say, liberal use of leather in her outfits. She'll be getting those from what I'm calling Haunted Noble, which is not a thing, but regular Noble made little sense, and I still wanted to use her lore without giving XSOLEIL another fucking Haunted one. This is the first one, but trust me. So instead she's getting what's basically noble, but with the specific bend that the elite dickheads help her, not because she's noble right now, but because she can leverage the fact that she was from an elite dickhead family and just down her luck. And elite dickheads not being on top is just unacceptable. For class skills, she's getting religion because it's the closest thing to exorcism other than maybe arcana, and history because she comes from a very old-fashioned family, and I can't imagine them not forcing her to study that shit. From background, acrobatics from being able to walk in her quote thick-ass heels, and arcana since it's maybe the closest thing to exorcism minus probably religion, and if you decide to go human, take perception or investigation to maybe see ghost better, and take both if you make the correct choice and keep her a Dampire, since it gives 2 skills. If you're not becoming a Dampire for something else and carrying over any features, strike 13 for human. And honestly, having -1 base in the intelligence skills she probably got from her family is kinda turning it around on the 8 intelligence. But finally, for Meloco spells that aren't hit him with lightning, Speak with Dead lets her speak with dead, Tree Seeing might also help her see ghosts and talk to them that way, and there's actually a bunch of spells that are very exorcism-like. Banishment is obvious, but Divine Word is very similar and arguably stronger, but also Forbiddance is actually really good since it's one of those spells that can be made permanent, is a ritual, and doesn't consume its components, so it can just be everywhere with enough time. Hollow is die at Forbiddance, and Magic Circle is die at Hollow. Then just take a bunch of cleric staples, or whatever you want really, since clerics aren't locked into their spell list. She has plenty of room for healing spells, but if someone else in your group is playing a Hex Haywire build, I might avoid stepping on their toes too much, since Hex is so much more focused on healing. Speaking of Hex Haywire, next up is Hex Haywire, the Sage of Grief. Sad man. We almost don't get any parallel to his council command, if not for life transference and Warring Bond, but mostly life transference. For those that haven't memorized the 521 spells in D&D, life transference does a fuckload of damage to you, but then heals a target for twice the damage you just took, which is exactly what Hex can do. Maybe, he's not super specific. Also, yeah, Warding Bond too. It gives you half the damage dealt to a person you're bonded with them only taking the other half. But in either case, Hex is going to be taking a fuckload of self-damage, so he needs to be as survivable as possible. And since he is also incredibly gray, and is a very close second for tallest Nijisanji member, I see every reason to make him a Goliath, which... Hey, Matt! Huh? Yeah, 7 to 8 feet, Goliaths are tall, I just said that.
No.
What do you mean he's 6'1"? Taller than 33 people, at 6'1". Motherfucker, I'm normally 6'1". You're telling me I could casually look down on all of them? Yeah, I do, but for videos it's metaphorically looking... Look, fuck it. Being a Goliath makes him big and gives him cold resistance, but mostly it lets him shrug off D12 plus con damage whenever he loses health. And since it works with life transference damage, it makes him so much less likely to drop himself to 0. Made even better since he's going to be mostly a cleric. Both because he's the only member of Nijisanji that actually has a focus on healing, and because it will really help him not uninstall being alive with Divine Healer, a life domain feature that heals him 2+ spells level whenever he heals someone. That self-healing means that the average of 18 damage from life transference is only actually 13 damage for Hex, or down to an average of only 1.5 if you're using Goliath's if going to die, don't button. To be clear, you shouldn't when you take average, save for when you won't risk losing anything, but still. Being able to cut the damage from life transference by about 16.5 means this build can, well, at least not spontaneously combust turn 2. Along with forcing him into the life domain, Divine Healer means he needs to be at least level 6. And while that could work, you'd either lose some health and some Goliath damage reduction by not getting more Constitution, or you just lose a lot of health by not getting tough. And you'd lose out on a surprise tool to help Hex cast even more life transference. So instead, I'm making him a level 8 cleric with 2 sorcerer levels. But honestly, this doesn't even really push life transference to its limits. With an extra sorcerer level to get meta magic, the way life transference is worded means you get to heal 2 people for 1 damage cost with Twin Spell, which is crazy given life transference is already twice as good as an upcasted Cure Wounds, balanced by the fact that the extra health is coming from you. But Hex can't do that, and if we make it too efficient, we won't be able to fit the angst in there, so he's stuck with only 2 sorcerer levels. With the +2 Constitution ability score increase and Tough Feet from 2 ASIs, this puts his final health at a staggering 117, 44 higher than Meloco, who is not only 4 levels higher, but doesn't have 2 fucking sorcerer levels. The features you gain from base cleric are irrelevant. Now, we've already covered his important subclass features, but sorcerer is the opposite, since we're only taking the levels to get access to base font of magic, meta magic's younger, much less cool cousin. It's the feature that actually gives you sorcery points, and importantly, lets you turn spell slots into points into spell slots, which we're going to use to turn most first and second level spell slots into beautiful, life transference casting 3rd level spell slots. If we burn everything for 3rd levels, we end up with a clean 10 points into 2 more 3rd level life transference casts. However, we want to be able to cast Warding Bond, so we're instead left with 8 points, giving Hex an extra 5th level slot for 7, and just keeping a 1st level spell slot for Shield, because of course he's getting Shield. He's trying not to make fucking die. How many times do I have to tell you people? Anyway, for the Sorcerer subclass, the healing-based Divine Soul's whole shtick is really different from Hex's, and its actual main feature is giving access to cleric spells. Not super important to a cleric, so instead I went with Shadow Magic. It can maybe let him survive on 1 when he would drop, which lets him get close to 0 more safely, and it's just goth as fuck, so it fits his aesthetic excellently. Since we already covered Constitution, let's hit his other stats. Wisdom is second to Con, since this man is the therapist for the most in need of therapy gen in Nijisanji. Charisma 3rd because of Voice Go Burr. Intelligence 4th because he's a pretty smart guy, though it could be swapped with Strength in 5th if you really wanted. And finally, Dex in last because it's the one without a reason not to be. Or background, it's Haunted One, obviously. Unmodified this time, since its features hinge on people looking him in the eyes and going, oh shit, this man's fucked up and needs to catch a fucking break. And after showing you this image of Hex that screams, oh shit, this man's fucked up and needs to catch a fucking break, I do not need to explain any further. As for tools, he's getting Cook's Utensils because he does, and a game set because what the fuck are you gonna do about it? Skills are Insight and Medicine from Cleric, pretty simple, they're the closest to being therapist skills. Persuasion and Intimidation, mostly because I'm not giving him super high Charisma and Voice Go Burr, so this makes up the difference. And finally Athletics, because Goliaths get athletic proficiencies, what we want doesn't matter. Last are his spells, again the main one being Life Transference, followed by Warding Bond in no small part because it only needs to be cast once and isn't concentration, so it won't cut too deep into the Life Transference slots. Unfortunately, Hex gets more than 2 spells. Mentioned it before, but Sorcerer gives Shield, a potential lifesaver and favorite for the 1 first level he'll have left over, along with Featherfall and False Life. The former because it doesn't need to get cast very often, but is irreplaceable when you need it, and the latter just because it kind of has the vibe, you know? Tragically, unlike Sorcerer, Cleric gives more than 3 spells, but those include fuckloads of support options, and some, like Remove Curse, can be viewed kinda as getting rid of magic pains if you squint really hard. I haven't mentioned Lesser Restoration yet, not because he shouldn't get it, but because it's a subclass spell he'll get automatically. Great for Lesso Resto, awful for Cure Wounds, since it gives the build a healing option that doesn't do 4d8 self-damage. I'd honestly ask your DM if you can swap it for Sanctuary or Shield of Faith or fucking anything really, but you can also just use Self-Control if that isn't an option. Next up is Vermilion. He's fucking weird. He's a psychic that can read your soul and control soul fire and uses that to make knives and what the fuck am I even reading? Like, okay, here's the checklist I'm fucking dealing with right now. Verse really big on Destiny, he has magic soul fire, he summons knives made of soul, he needs to be able to sense how good or evil a soul is, he's clearly styled as a warlock, I mean, come on. And... let's just start with his soul knives. He's gained them from Soul Knife, the rogue subclass. I don't think I can legally keep that from him, and he did name his council command some bullshit Latin name for the express purpose of being edgy, so he definitely has the rogue attitude down pat, but don't worry. Even though it fits thematically, mechanically, and edgily, it is still going to find a way to be a fucking problem later. After Rogue, he's getting some mandatory wizard levels to get the Divination subclass, since Ver can see the future, and this is just how you do that. Except instead of the standard 2 levels needed for the subclass, Ver's actually getting 3. See, in Tasha's, spellcasters got a bunch of spells added to their available list, and for some fucking reason, wizards got Augury. I think this is stupid as fuck, and I've actively ignored Tasha's spell lists in the past, but the alternative is giving Ver 3 levels in Cleric, and we're not even done the multi-classing as it is, so we're taking it. Speaking of his multi-class, he's finally getting some Warlock, largely for one spell and problems, which is honestly fucked up because Ver is clearly meant to be a Warlock. He even gets his magic from the patronage of some outside source, but he wanted mechanics from every class but Warlock, so we deal. Specifically, we deal with the Genie Patron, which, yeah, is narratively total bullshit, but mechanically it's really nice. Giving him some extra fire damage to account for all the fucking fire, and maybe more importantly, giving him access to detect evil and good. The closest thing to seeing how pure someone's soul is, which would otherwise be another Cleric exclusive. And to make his knives suck less, he's going to be level 5 Blade Lock to get some choice invocations. But before we can cover those, we need to cover that problem I've been mentioning. It's quite simple. Both Soul Knife Rogue and Blade Pact Warlock summon weapons. Okay, cool, so does Ver, that's why he's getting those, it's all good. Except for the itty bitty detail that because of specific wording bullshit, they cannot work together. At all. Warlock specifies with your Pact weapon for its bullshit, and Soul Knife specifies with the Soul Knife for its bullshit. They do not mesh at all, and that fucking sucks, because it's cool as hell and it isn't even that good. Like, it's good, but this isn't exactly the next coffee lock here. And it only breaks because WotC is pedantic and annoying and doesn't want us having any fucking fun. So my solution to make this genuinely really interesting Psychic Gish Warlock thing work is just make the Soul Knives the Pact weapon. You are not supposed to be able to do that, and I don't care. Treat the Soul Knife as a magic weapon, and suddenly you have a build that's rad as hell, and can almost sometimes compete with any Warlock with Agonizing Blast. Okay, with that mess behind us, let's get a better look at Ver's full build. Starting a Warlock, because his lore shows him being gifted the necklace that seems to either give him powers, or helps him control his powers, even though the Rogue saves are much better. Genie Patron and Pact of the Blade we covered, and at level 5 he gets 3 invocations. Thirsting Blade to get bootleg multi-attack, improved pack weapon since he's going full Stab of the Bastard and gets a little bit of a boost from that, and Armor of Shadows since we've seen him in combat and this idiot is definitely not wearing any armor, which is stupid and dramatic and perfect for Ver. Next is Wizard. Painfully simple, get Porn to do the funniest dice shit, then take a 3rd level to get Augury. And Arcane Recovery is that one scene from Invincible compared to Warlock, so who cares? And finally, Rogue. Expertise, sneak attack, and cunning action are all good, but not why we're here. Soul Knife gives him some of what we're gonna call soul power dice, which can be added to skill and tool checks you're proficient in, and also they can be spent to communicate telepathically, but the first one's free, and I don't know, it's weird. More important are the knives themselves, which are also weird, because I don't think they actually exist before you attack, which is just... like, it's cool, but WotC struggles with writing cool rules, so it just makes my life harder. They do d6 damage, have a range throw of 60 feet with no long range, do psychic damage with no visible marks except for the burning, and when you take the attack action with one, you can make a bonus action attack with one that's identical except for the fact that it does d4 damage instead. Now that we've spent an ungodly amount of time on Frankenstein's multi-class, I'll say he's a human, because he is. And for stats, he's getting 20 dexterity with the ASI from level 4 Warlock, because I really want Soul Knife Lock to work, and I am willing to use the shortest member of XSOLEIL to make that pitch. Followed by 16 strength, because we have seen this dude grab motherfuckers. And strength is something that Anima Veritas is supposed to give him. The same way it gives him a flat penalty to being taken seriously. Next is 14 con because everything else is worse. I mean, what does he need mental stats for anyways? He's a student politician. Have you seen politicians? He'll be fine. With 12 intelligence, yes, technically his wizard levels break multi-classing rules. We are already so far past that at this point. Then 10 charisma, which if you're a fan of his, you might disagree with, but I've seen what villains count as Riz, and I am not impressed. Dude got kinda stood up, but really it was his own fucking fault, and was so emotionally crushed by his own Rizlessness that Doppio and Mel had to reluctantly, for the bit, let him hang out with them. Good times. To say nothing of the fact that he named his council command some bullshit land because he thought, incorrectly, that it'd be cool. So yeah, no charisma and negative wisdom for this chronic dumbass. So hey, his charisma could be worse. Don't tempt me. Okay, I won't leave him with absolutely nothing for charisma. He's not that bad. I'll at least give him intimidation. I get how he can be scary if he wants to be, sometimes. He's getting that and investigation from Warlock. The choices aren't great, but it fits well enough. Athletics from Rogue Multiclass along with expertise because again, we have seen this dude grab motherfuckers. Expertise, he's also getting in acrobatics and insight actually, which is getting expertise from the empathetic feat from Variant Human. Along with expertise and insight, it gives a non-modifier changing point to wisdom and the ability to pretty reliably get advantage on ability checks against people, which is only really usable outside of combat, but at least out of combat, it's really good. His skills rounds out with stealth, which we've seen, with lockpicking covered by thieves' tools, also from Rogue. And, if I level with you quick, you can switch the acrobatics proficiency for persuasion if you're so inclined, but I will judge you. For his background, if we look at his lore video, we'll find that it's just not about his backstory at all. It's totally current, which is just a bit of a fucking pain. Also, 2 questions. Why did he get a second lore video in the first place? And why does it go so fucking hard? Like, I want to knock it for doing more for other Nijisanji members than it does for Ver, but honestly, it does more for other members' lore with what are basically single images than what other Nijisanji members' lore does for them, so I don't think it's a his lore problem. But yeah, his lore video 2 is basically his Warlock origin, I think. But he is mondo fucked up in it, and every character that isn't him or an hallucination can so obviously tell, so he's getting haunted one. Again, hat trick, told you. I mean, his lore video shows him holding his own soul, which is a literal heart of darkness. And for tools, it's giving him his clarinet and soul language, I guess. Easy. And finally, for his spells we haven't already covered.
Don't care. I don't care.
And finally, Zaion Lanza. Another weird-ass warlock with a couple wizard levels for tech options, yay! I'll just get over with now. Zaion summons things from the future / delusions, and those things are typically pointy and knife-shaped, so 3 levels of warlock to get back to the blade covers that nicely. With conjuration wizard just giving coverage to any for more miscellaneous summons. And let's cover her stats up front too, because they get a little bit fucky. Dex is highest at 18, because it makes the build function, and I couldn't find a reason not to give it to her. Then intelligence, since she taught herself high-level Japanese without the +1, so it's only 15. A bit mean, but 8 wisdom isn't dumb enough for someone who needed to get bullied and paid to take a fucking shower. Look, I don't make the rules, I just make the rules. There is actually strength of all things, because everything else is fighting it out for the bottom, though charisma definitely fought the least starting off the bottom half. It's actually the stat getting the +1 for 13, entirely because now the build can follow the bullshit multiclassing rules for wizard or warlock, so her first level literally only affects whether she gets an intelligence or charisma save, and also what the build is before level 5, but that's not my problem. I went with wizard saves. Finally, constitution, second to last, since she looks like she weighs like 20 pounds soaking wet, tops. For the class features, already mentioned Conjuration Wizard. It does what you think. She can conjure any pretty small non-magic thing, with the only big downside for us being that it poofs if it does any damage, which is why we need Warlock levels. Speaking of Warlock, Zaion is going to get packed to the blade with the Hexblade patron. Not because it's a good fit or anything, but because the other patrons are substantially worse. Hexblade's curse could be a sci-fi scope or lock-on or something, and the spells it gives aren't awful, but Hex Warrior only lets, and thankfully doesn't force, Zaion to use her charisma instead of her much better dex for attacks. And it gives medium armor that would also just be worse than the mage armor she's getting from Armor of Shadows. Her other invocation is Improved Pack Weapon, which not only has the shocking property of improving her packed weapon, but also improves the variety of what weapons she can conjure to include range stuff. Not something I remember Zaion ever mentioning, but I don't see why she wouldn't be able to summon guns, even reflavored crossbow guns. Because boring, she gets a Variant Human feat, and we get to start the Ask Your Dungeon Master part of this build. See, and knives fucking suck. They just suck. They are not good, but they can be made good so long as your DM is willing to bend the rules as written to count summoning your packed weapon as drawing your packed weapon. That is not how it's written, but it's how it works thematically, and most DMs I've seen ignore the full action requirement anyway, because it's fucking lame to have your first turn be limited to drawing your weapon. The reason we care is that drawing the packed weapon lets us take Fighting Initiate Thrown Weapon Fighting for Zaion's feat. which lets her, quote, draw a weapon that has the thrown property as part of the attack, which means she can comfortably summon as many knives as she has attacks. And it even gives +2 damage on thrown weapon attacks, which with improved pack weapon means each attack gets +1 to hit and +3 damage, which actually makes the D4 base damage not completely debilitating. I mean, it's still worse than Agonizing Blast, but still. And 2-weapon fighting is an okay substitute if your DM doesn't play ball, but that's with a pretty generous idea of okay. For her background, I went with Far Traveler. Fits well with both her lore and with her jokes and references standing out a bit. It's also giving her proficiency in 2 game sets, cards because she likes gambling and this is as close to gacha as you get in D&D, and dice because she likes gacha and this is as close to gambling as you get in D&D. For proficiency, she can get Arcana and History from class, since any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and technically she's privy to history that no one else is because it's not even happened yet. Shut up about Noctix. Technically not wrong. For the generic 3, she can kind of just take all the dex ones, but I think Sleight of Hand, Acrobatics, and Investigation fit better for someone trying to find a way to stop the actual maybe apocalypse. Finally, her spells. Remote Access and Find Vehicle are the only Technomancy she's getting. The other tech spells suck ass and make no sense in most settings. They died in Blightest for a reason. The rest are just more future summon shit, so we'll be quick. Message, texting, light, flashlight, shocking grasp, taser, eldritch blast, she mentioned lasers, minor illusion, holograms, identify, future Google, comp lang, future translate, alarm, alarms, shield, shields, magic missile, more lasers, silent image, more holograms, burning hands, flamethrower, color spray, flashbang, display / early warning system or something from Gift of Alacrity. And that's it. Thank you for coming. Remember to subscribe, whether you liked it or not. I want my triple digit number. That's it. Show's over. Take care of yourself. Fuck off.